Have you ever caught yourself lying to yourself about what you really want? Telling yourself you're satisfied with less. That luxury doesn't matter to you, while secretly watching others live and wondering why them and not me? I'm Solomon, the man who possessed more wealth than any human in history. And I need to tell you something that might hurt at first, but will set you free forever. Most people will never become rich, not because they lack opportunities, not because they were born in the wrong place or because the system is rigged against them. Most will never become rich because they're not ready to carry the weight of wealth without being destroyed by it. You see, wealth isn't just money. Wealth is power, and power in the hands of someone without inner maturity becomes a curse that destroys relationships, corrupts character, and turns blessings into golden prisons. But there are signs, 7 specific signs that reveal when a person has transcended scarcity thinking and developed the wisdom necessary not just to conquer wealth, but to keep it and multiply it with purpose. Right now, as you listen, your soul is being tested. Each word I say will expose where you truly stand on this journey. Some of you will discover you already possess these signs and just need the courage to act. Others will understand exactly why prosperity has fled from your hands. This isn't cheap motivation. This is spiritual surgery. If you're ready to face the truth about what really separates you from the wealth you desire, then stay with me. Because what I'm about to reveal could be the turning point between the life you've been living and the life you were born for. Sign 1. Loving silence more than approval. Have you noticed how difficult it is to sit alone with your thoughts for more than 5 minutes? How almost unbearable it is to be in an environment without music, without notifications, without voices telling you what to do or how to feel. Even harder is admitting that you make important financial decisions based on what others will think, not on what actually makes sense for your life. I spent years surrounded by advisors who told me exactly what I wanted to hear. Men who applauded every decision, who confirmed every whim, who transformed my mistakes into genius. And you know what I discovered? That constant approval was the source of some of the greatest disasters of my life. The first sign that someone is ready to carry wealth without being destroyed by it is simple but painful to accept. Loving silence more than approval. It's being able to sit alone in an empty room without entertainment, without external validation, and not panic. It's making decisions based on your inner compass, even when that means disappointing people you love. Think of a deep well in the middle of the desert. Outside, the scorching sun, wind lifting sand, the constant noise of passing caravans. But at the bottom of the well is fresh water, crystalline, silent. Most people are afraid to descend there. They'd rather die of thirst on the surface, screaming for help, than make the solitary journey to the source. Silence is that well, and the wisdom you need to manage wealth is at the bottom of it, not on the noisy surface where everyone shouts opinions about what you should do with your money. There was a young merchant who visited me every week, always agitated, always talking about his grand plans, always asking what I thought of every move he wanted to make. One day I received him in silence. I didn't say a word for an entire hour. He became so uncomfortable, he started sweating, fidgeting in his chair, inventing excuses to leave. 2 weeks later, he returned bankrupt. He'd made a disastrous partnership because he couldn't bear the uncertainty of deciding alone. He needed someone's approval, even from a partner he barely knew. You know what the tragedy is? The answer he was looking for was inside him the whole time. But he was so afraid of silence, so terrified of being alone with his own perceptions, that he preferred collective ruin to solitary wisdom. Financial maturity doesn't begin with investment techniques or business strategies. It begins with the courage to sit in silence and ask yourself difficult questions. Why do I want money? What will I do when I have to fire someone I like? How will I react when friends start asking for loans? What happens to my marriage when I earn 10 times more than my spouse? These questions don't have ready answers on Google. No influencer can answer them for you. They can only be answered in solitude, in silence, in brutal honesty with yourself. Gold screams, shines, makes noise, attracts attention, draws crowds, but wisdom whispers. And if you haven't learned to hear whispers, if you can only process information when it comes with shouts and applause, you're not ready to manage anything significant. Here's what you need to practice today. Turn everything off. Phone, music, TV, notifications. Sit in a comfortable chair and stay for 15 minutes in absolute silence. Don't meditate, don't pray, don't plan. Just observe your thoughts, your anxieties, your fears without judging them. If you can do this without panicking, without seeking distraction, without inventing an emergency to escape, you've taken the first step toward being ready for real wealth. If you can't, you've just discovered why money has fled from your hands. Because wealth is responsibility, and responsibility demands solitary decisions. And solitary decisions can only be made by those who love silence more than approval. The question that cannot be silenced is this: are you willing to disappoint people you love to make the right decision? Or do you still need everyone to like you to feel secure? Your honest answer will determine whether you're ready for the next level or if you still need to mature in the school of silence. Sign 2. Desiring wisdom more than gain. You know the difference between a rich man and a prosperous man? The rich man has money. The prosperous man has discernment. And that difference will determine whether the wealth you conquer becomes a blessing that multiplies or a curse that depletes. I've seen men win fortunes in lotteries and lose everything in 2 years. I've seen brilliant entrepreneurs build empires and destroy them with one arrogant decision. I've seen heirs transform generational wealth into ashes in a decade. And you know what they all had in common? They had money, but they didn't have wisdom. When God appeared to me in a dream and said, "Ask for whatever you want," I could have asked for enough gold to buy the entire world. I could have asked for invincible armies, palaces touching the heavens, power to conquer all nations. But I asked for something my advisors thought was madness: wisdom to discern between good and evil. And you know what happened? I received wisdom. And with it came wealth that surpassed that of all the kings of the earth. Because when you have true discernment, when you understand the invisible laws that govern prosperity, money becomes a consequence, not an objective. Most people ask the wrong question. They ask, "How can I get rich?" The right question is, "How can I become trustworthy to manage wealth?" The first question produces desperate schemes and empty dreams. The second question produces solid character and lasting prosperity. Think of a fruit tree. You can tear green fruit from the tree, but it won't nourish you. It'll give you a stomachache. But if you care for the tree, water the roots, prune the branches, protect it from what could destroy it, it will give you sweet, abundant fruit for decades. Wisdom is the root. Money is the fruit. If you only care about the fruit, the tree dies. If you care for the root, the fruit comes naturally. There was a merchant who came to me every week with the same question: "King Solomon, tell me what business I should invest in to get rich quickly." And I always answered the same: "First, tell me how you treat your employees when no one is watching." He'd grow impatient. "But, Your Majesty, I want to know about investments, not about morality." One day he stopped coming. I learned later he'd found an investment that looked great on paper, an entire caravan of rare spices at a very low price. It seemed like the deal of his life, but the spices were rotten inside. The seller had deceived him. He lost everything. You know why he was deceived? Because he didn't have wisdom to discern. He was so focused on gain that he didn't notice the signs that something was wrong. Wisdom teaches you that every financial decision is also a character decision. It teaches you that every partnership is a test of trust. It teaches you that every opportunity too good to be true probably is too good to be true. But wisdom also teaches you things that finance books don't teach. It teaches you when to say no to a lucrative business that will destroy your family. It teaches you when to invest in something that might lose money short term but aligns with your values. The universe is constantly testing whether you're ready for the next level of responsibility. And the tests don't come with labels. They come disguised as temptations, shortcuts, opportunities that seem perfect. If you're always choosing quick gain instead of the wise decision, you're failing the tests. And while you keep failing, the universe won't trust you with greater responsibilities. But if you start choosing wisdom, if you begin asking the right question before every financial decision, if you start valuing character more than money, something magical happens. You begin attracting opportunities you didn't even know existed. People start trusting you with bigger deals. Creative solutions start appearing for problems that seemed impossible. Because when you have true wisdom, You don't need to chase money. Money chases you not because you're greedy, but because you've become trustworthy. The question that should keep you awake at night isn't, how much money can I make, but how much character can I develop? Because in the end, your character is the only asset no one can take from you. And it's the only asset that will determine whether the wealth you conquer blesses your life or destroys it. Sign 3. Not idolizing comfort. Want to know what the most dangerous period of my life was? It wasn't when I faced enemies. It wasn't when the kingdom was at war. It wasn't when I had to make decisions that could cost lives. It was when I had everything. When all my desires could be satisfied with a snap of my fingers. I had 700 wives and 300 concubines. I had vineyards stretching beyond the horizon. I built gardens so beautiful they seemed like pieces of paradise on earth. And you know what I discovered in the midst of all that abundance? That the emptiness inside me didn't diminish. On the contrary, it increased. Because I was using external pleasures to try to heal internal wounds. And that's like trying to put out a fire with gasoline. The third sign that someone is ready for wealth is paradoxical and painful. Not idolizing comfort. It's understanding that money doesn't heal trauma. It doesn't solve self-esteem problems. It doesn't fill abandonment voids. It doesn't erase the pain of rejection. Money amplifies who you are. If you're empty inside, money will amplify that emptiness. Think of an infected wound. You can cover it with the most expensive bandages in the world. You can use the most sophisticated medications. You can hire the best doctors. But if the infection isn't treated at the root, it will spread. The pretty bandage only hides the problem, it doesn't solve it. Most people want wealth as a bandage. They want money so they don't have to face their insecurities. They want luxury to feel important. They want comfort to avoid the discomfort of growth. And that's the perfect recipe for self-destruction. I knew a young prince from a neighboring nation. He inherited a prosperous kingdom at 20. He had enough gold to buy anything he desired. And what did he do? He spent years trying to fill an emotional void with increasingly extreme pleasures. It started with extravagant parties. When that wasn't enough, he moved to risky gambling. When that lost its thrill, he began seeking increasingly dangerous and destructive experiences. In 10 years, he'd lost the kingdom, his family, his friends, and almost his life. You know what his real problem was? He'd never processed his father's death. He'd never faced the fear of not being worthy of the throne. He'd never dealt with the loneliness of carrying responsibilities no one around him understood. He was using money as anesthesia to avoid feeling the pain. And when the anesthesia wore off, he needed increasingly larger doses. That's what happens when you idolize comfort. You create an emotional dependence on external pleasure. And like all dependencies, it demands ever-increasing doses to produce the same effect. I went through that. There was a period of my life when I experienced every imaginable pleasure. I built pools with crystalline waters. I created gardens with rare plants from every continent. I organized banquets that lasted weeks. And in the midst of all that abundance, I wrote the most desperate words of my life. Vanity of vanities. All is vanity. Because I discovered something no one had taught me. Pleasure has diminishing returns. The first time you experience a luxury is incredible. The 10th time is normal. The 100th time is boring. And you need ever greater luxuries to feel the same thrill as the first time. But wisdom has increasing returns. The more you learn, the more you want to learn. The more you grow, the more you realize how much you can still grow. Wisdom doesn't leave you bored. It leaves you fascinated. The difference between someone ready for wealth and someone who isn't is simple. Those who are ready see money as a tool. Those who aren't see money as medicine. If you're seeking wealth to cure depression, you'll end up depressed and rich. If you're seeking money to feel loved, you'll feel rich and rejected. If you're chasing luxury to escape anxiety, you'll be anxious in the midst of luxury. Because internal problems aren't solved with external solutions. They're solved with internal work, with self-knowledge, with courage to face your shadows, with willingness to grow even when it hurts. Here's the truth no one wants to hear. If you can't be happy with little, you won't be happy with much. If you don't have peace in simplicity, you won't have peace in abundance. If you don't love yourself in scarcity, you won't love yourself in prosperity. This doesn't mean you should settle for poverty. It means you must resolve your emotional problems before you have money to amplify them. Before you chase your next financial goal, ask yourself this honest question. Am I seeking money to solve what emotional problem? If the answer is any form of, to feel better about myself, you're not ready yet. First, do the internal work. Face your fears. Process your wounds. Build solid self-esteem. Develop clear purpose. When you can be whole in simplicity, then you'll be ready for prosperity that won't destroy you. Sign 4. Knowing how to say no to what you want now. You know what the most ambitious project of my life was? It wasn't conquering territories. It wasn't accumulating gold. It wasn't forming alliances with other kingdoms. It was building a temple. And that project taught me the most valuable lesson about wealth any man can learn. Patience is the most powerful asset you can possess. When God gave me the vision of the temple that needed to be built, I could have started immediately. I had resources. I had labor. I had authority to mobilize the entire kingdom. My advisors pressured me. Your Majesty, why wait? Let's begin tomorrow. But wisdom whispered something different to me. First, prepare everything perfectly. I spent 7 years just gathering materials, 7 years organizing every detail, selecting every craftsman, planning every stage. My enemies laughed. Solomon is getting old. He's lost the courage to act. But I knew I was making the smartest investment of my life. I was investing in patience. The fourth sign that someone is ready for true wealth is perhaps the most painful of all. Knowing how to say no to what you want now to have what really matters later. It's understanding that impatience is the silent killer of all great dreams. Think of a seed. If you dig up the seed every week to see if it's growing, it will never become a tree. Growth happens in darkness, invisible, silent. And if you don't have the patience to wait, you'll destroy exactly what you're trying to create. Most people treat money as an immediate result. They want to plant today and harvest tomorrow. They want to invest on Monday and get rich by Friday. And when that doesn't happen, they change strategies, change methods, change dreams. They never give anything enough time to work. I knew a young merchant who had a brilliant idea for a business. He sought me out full of enthusiasm, explaining how he would revolutionize trade in our kingdom. The idea was genuinely good, but when I asked how long he was willing to invest to see results, he said 3 months maximum. 3 months to revolutionize an entire sector of the economy. I tried to explain that great changes take years to consolidate, that he'd need patience to build reputation, to educate the market, to refine the product. But he was convinced he'd found a shortcut. 6 months later, he'd given up. It didn't work, he told me. I'm going to try something else. And he went off chasing the next get-rich-quick scheme. 20 years later, I saw another merchant implement exactly the same idea, but with patience. He became one of the most prosperous men in the kingdom. The difference between them wasn't intelligence, wasn't resources, wasn't opportunity. It was patience. One wanted to harvest before planting. The other was willing to plant, knowing the harvest would come in its season. Patience isn't passivity. It's not sitting around waiting for good things to happen. Patience is intelligent work with long-term perspective. It's doing today what will generate results in 5 years. It's investing in processes others consider boring because they only bear fruit in the future. The market always offers 2 options: fast money and lasting money. Fast money is tempting, shouts loud, promises shortcuts. Lasting money is quiet, demands work, requires patience. Most choose fast money because they can't tolerate the anxiety of waiting. They can't handle the uncertainty of the process. They can't work on something that doesn't give immediate visible results. But the truly prosperous choose lasting money. They choose to plant oak trees instead of sunflowers. They choose to build solid foundations instead of castles in the sand. The question that should guide every financial decision of your life is this: is this building something lasting? Or am I just satisfying my anxiety for immediate results? Your patience is your most valuable capital. Protect it, cultivate it, use it wisely. Because whoever masters the art of patience masters the art of prosperity. Sign 5. Seeing value where others see contempt. Have you noticed how the most valuable wisdom you've received in life probably came from the most unlikely sources? Not from the most respected university professor, not from the most famous book, not from the most popular guru. It came from someone no one took seriously, from a casual conversation, from a situation you weren't even paying attention to. There's a story few know about my reign, a story that completely changed my vision of where true value resides. There was a small city in my kingdom being attacked by a powerful army. The inhabitants sent desperate messengers asking for help, but I was busy with matters I considered more important. The city was doomed. The invading army was vastly superior. The inhabitants knew it was a matter of days until total destruction. But there was a poor man in the city, a man no one respected, whom everyone despised. A man who lived on the outskirts, whom people avoided, who was considered crazy by his neighbors. That man had an idea so simple it seemed stupid, so obvious it seemed insignificant. He proposed a strategy that saved the entire city. With his despised wisdom, he defeated an entire army without spilling a drop of blood. And you know what happened after the city was saved? No one remembered him. No one honored him. He returned to his anonymous life and died forgotten. The fifth sign that someone is ready for true wealth is the ability to see value where others see contempt. It's understanding that life's greatest opportunities often come disguised as small things undervalued, ignored by the crowd. Think of a gold nugget in the mud. To unprepared eyes, it's just another dirty stone. You can pass by it 1,000 times and notice nothing special. But to those with trained eyes, to those who understand what to look for, it's a treasure that can change an entire life. Most people only recognize value when it's already obvious, when it's already shining, when everyone's already talking about it. But at that point, value is no longer an opportunity. It's just confirmation of what everyone already knows. The truly prosperous don't wait for obvious opportunities. They create opportunities from what others consider trash. How many times have you dismissed an idea because it seemed too simple? How many times have you ignored an opportunity because it didn't have enough glamour? How many times have you passed by a valuable person because they didn't have the titles you expected? Wisdom taught me that real value rarely announces its presence. It doesn't come with fanfare, doesn't come with marketing, doesn't come with crowd approval. It comes whispering, disguised, humble, waiting for someone with eyes to see. The world is full of messenger pigeons disguised as insignificant ideas. It's full of stable boys disguised as unimportant people. It's full of gold nuggets disguised as common stones, but only those with enough humility to consider that value can come from anywhere can see them. Keep your eyes open. Keep your mind curious. Keep your heart humble. The next poor man who saves a city might be right in front of you. The next gold nugget might be in the next pile of mud you encounter. The question is, do you have eyes to see? Sign 6. Understanding that everything you have is alone. Want to know what the most humbling moment of my life was? It wasn't when I made public mistakes. It wasn't when I faced military defeats. It wasn't when I was criticized by prophets. It was when I was at the height of my arrogance, surrounded by all the wealth in the world, and a simple question completely destroyed my illusion of control. I was on my golden throne, contemplating my kingdom stretching beyond the horizon. Magnificent palaces, treasures from entire nations, powerful armies, subjects who trembled when I spoke. I felt like a god on earth. And it was exactly at that moment that the voice of wisdom asked me the question that would change everything. Solomon, what did you bring into this world when you were born? Nothing. I brought nothing. And what will you take with you when you die? Nothing. I would take nothing. Then, what exactly do you own? The sixth sign that someone is ready for true wealth is perhaps the most liberating, and at the same time the most terrifying. Understanding that everything you have is a loan. That you don't own anything, you're just a temporary administrator of resources that will pass into other hands. This perception completely changes your relationship with money. When you see yourself as owner, every loss is a personal tragedy. Every threat to your possessions is an attack on your identity. Every market fluctuation is an emotional earthquake. You live in constant anxiety because you're trying to control what's uncontrollable. But when you see yourself as an administrator, everything changes. Loss becomes redirection. Change becomes opportunity. Uncertainty becomes adventure. Because you're not defending your identity. You're just managing resources that were never really yours. Think of a garden. A gardener who thinks he owns the plants despairs when a flower wilts. He fights against the seasons. He battles the weather. He rebels against natural laws. But a gardener who understands he's just caring for something bigger than himself works in harmony with the cycles. He plants in the right season. He harvests at the right time. He accepts that some plants die so others can be born. It took me decades to learn this lesson. For a long time, I confused my wealth with my identity. I thought I was valuable because I had much. I believed I was important because I owned palaces. I imagined I'd be remembered for the treasures I accumulated. There was a servant in my palace who taught me a lesson no wise man had managed to convey. He'd been caring for the gardens for 50 years. He saw generations of plants be born and die. He saw entire gardens be replanted. He saw storms destroy years of work. One day, after a particularly destructive storm, I found him calmly replanting an area that had been devastated. I asked him how he managed to start over so calmly after seeing his work destroyed. He looked at me with those wise eyes that only those who've lived long possess and said, "Your Majesty, I don't plant gardens. I care for gardens. And caring means accepting that everything has a season. My job isn't to prevent plants from dying. My job is to make them flourish while they're alive." That answer hit me like lightning. I realized I was trying to be the garden instead of caring for it. I was trying to eternally own something that by nature is temporary. From that day forward, I began seeing my wealth in a completely different way, not as an extension of my ego, but as a responsibility entrusted to me, not as proof of my value, but as a tool to create value, not as something to accumulate indefinitely, but as something to make fruitful and share. And you know what happened? Paradoxically, when I stopped desperately clinging to wealth, it began multiplying in ways I'd never experienced. Because when you manage resources as an administrator rather than hoarding as an owner, you make wiser decisions. The arrogant owner hides his money under the mattress because he's afraid of losing it. The wise administrator invests because he understands that idle resources are wasted resources. The anxious owner makes decisions based on fear. The confident administrator makes decisions based on responsibility. Here's the truth that will revolutionize your financial life. When you treat money as a divine loan, you become worthy of receiving ever larger loan. When you demonstrate you can manage small amounts well, the universe trusts larger amounts in your hands. But when you treat money as personal property, when you cling to it with closed fists, when you use it only for your own pleasure, you demonstrate you don't have maturity to manage anything significant. This doesn't mean you should give away everything you have. It means you should use everything you have with wisdom. It doesn't mean you can't enjoy your prosperity. It means you should enjoy it with responsibility and gratitude. Begin practicing administrator mentality today. Every time you make a financial decision, ask, if I were managing this for someone I deeply trust, what decision would I make? Every time you feel anxious about money, remember, this doesn't define who I am. It's just something I'm temporarily managing. Because in the end, the only thing we truly possess is the character we develop and the impact we generate while managing the resources that pass through our hands. And when you understand this deeply, when you live this consistently, you'll discover you've become worthy of managing riches you never dreamed were possible. Because the universe entrusts its greatest treasures only to those who've proven to be faithful administrators of what is small. Sign 7. Praying for discernment and acting with courage. You know what the most dangerous prayer anyone can make is? It's not asking for wealth. It's not asking for success. It's not asking for protection. It's asking for discernment. Because when you truly receive discernment, it comes accompanied by a terrifying responsibility, the obligation to act on what you see, even when it costs dearly. At the beginning of my reign, when God offered me anything I wanted, I asked for wisdom to discern between good and evil. It seemed like a safe choice, a beautiful virtue, something any sensible person would ask for. I didn't know I was asking to see things most people prefer to ignore. Discernment showed me that some of my most beloved advisors were betraying me. It revealed that popular policies were destroying the kingdom's future. It made me see that relationships giving me pleasure were compromising my integrity. And each revelation came with a painful choice: act on what I saw, or pretend I didn't know. The seventh and final sign that someone is ready for true wealth is perhaps the rarest and most powerful combination that exists: praying for discernment and having the courage to act on it. It's wanting to see the truth even when it hurts. It's seeking wisdom even when it demands sacrifices. It's having the strength to do what's right even when the price is high. Most people don't want real discernment. They want confirmation. They want divine wisdom to validate decisions they've already made, paths they've already chosen, relationships they've already built. But true discernment often reveals you're on the wrong path, with the wrong people, for the wrong reasons. Think of surgery. The patient can pray for the doctor to find only good things in their body. They can hope all the tests show perfect health. But if there's a tumor, the worst thing that can happen is for the doctor not to see it. Because ignoring the problem doesn't make it disappear, it only allows it to grow until it becomes incurable. Discernment is spiritual surgery that reveals the tumors in your financial life. Toxic relationships draining your energy, destructive habits sabotaging your progress, limiting beliefs keeping you small, false opportunities leading you in the wrong direction. I remember the first time discernment cost me something truly important. There was an advisor who'd been with me since the beginning of my reign. He was charismatic, popular among the people, apparently loyal. Everyone admired him. I myself considered him almost a brother. But discernment began showing me subtle signs, small inconsistencies in his stories, decisions that seemed to benefit him more than the kingdom, alliances that made no strategic sense, information leaking from private meetings. For months, I fought against these perceptions. I wanted to be wrong. I invented excuses for behaviors that bothered me. I rationalized the signs my intuition caught, because recognizing the truth would mean losing someone important and facing a very complicated situation. Until discernment showed me something I could no longer ignore. He was preparing a coup, not directly against me, but against policies I considered fundamental to the kingdom. He was orchestrating a coalition to pressure me toward changes that would benefit only a small group of wealthy people. At that moment, I had two choices. I could pretend I didn't know and avoid confrontation, or I could act on what discernment had revealed, knowing it would cost an important relationship and create powerful enemies. I chose courage. I confronted the advisor directly. The conversation was one of the most difficult of my life. He denied everything. He accused me of paranoia. He mobilized others against me. For weeks, the palace was a political battlefield. Many questioned my sanity. Some suggested I was losing the ability to lead, but 6 months later, it was discovered that my perception was correct. His plan was revealed by other sources. If I hadn't acted when I did, the kingdom would have suffered enormous damage. The courage to act on discernment saved not only my kingdom but thousands of lives that would have been harmed by the policies he wanted to implement. That experience taught me something fundamental about prosperity. True wealth doesn't come to those who avoid difficult decisions. It comes to those who have the courage to make the right decisions, even when they're costly in the short term. Because the universe is constantly testing whether you're worthy of greater resources. And the tests don't come in obvious formats. They come disguised as ethical dilemmas, as choices between convenience and integrity, as situations where doing the right thing means losing something valuable. If you always choose the easiest path, if you always avoid conflicts, if you always prioritize harmony over truth, you're failing the tests. And while you keep failing, the universe won't trust greater responsibilities into your hands. But if you develop the habit of seeking genuine discernment and having the courage to act on it, something extraordinary happens. You begin attracting opportunities that demand exactly those qualities. People begin trusting you with important decisions. Situations begin presenting themselves where your integrity becomes your greatest asset. Here's what most people don't understand about prayer. Praying for discernment isn't asking God to make your choices for you. It's asking to see clearly what your real options are and having wisdom to choose well. It's asking to see beyond appearances and understand the true consequences of your decisions. And acting with courage isn't absence of fear. It's feeling fear and doing what's right anyway. It's knowing you might lose something important and choosing integrity anyway. It's accepting that doing what's right isn't always doing what's popular. Every important financial decision of your life will, at its core, be a test of character. Will you choose quick gain or sustainable growth? Will you choose others' approval or your conscience's peace? Will you choose what's convenient or what's right? If you don't have the habit of praying for discernment, start today. Before every important decision, pause. Ask for wisdom to see beyond appearances. Ask for courage to act on what you see. Ask for strength to pay the price of integrity. And when discernment comes, when you start seeing things you'd prefer not to see, when you realize you need to make painful changes, don't run. Don't make excuses. Don't seek second opinions that tell you what you want to hear. Act with courage. Even when it means losing money in the short term, even when it means disappointing people you love, even when it means leaving the comfort zone you built with so much effort. Because in the end, the combination of discernment and courage isn't just the final sign of readiness for wealth. It's the foundation of all lasting prosperity. It's what separates those who build legacies from those who just accumulate possessions. And when you consistently demonstrate you have these qualities, when you prove you can see the truth and act on it regardless of cost, the universe will begin trusting treasures into your hands that you never imagined existed. The question that defines your financial future is simple but profound. Are you willing to pay the price of wisdom? Do you have the courage to act on what it reveals? Your honest answer will determine whether you're truly ready for the wealth you seek or if you still need to mature in the school of life. Because wealth without wisdom is destruction. Wisdom without courage is paralysis. But wisdom with courage is the power that moves mountains and builds empires that honor both those who possess them and the source from which they came. Now you know the 7 signs. But knowing isn't enough. The difference between those who transform their lives and those who just collect information lies in the courage to look in the mirror of the soul and ask the question few have the courage to ask. How many of these signs do I truly possess? Don't deceive yourself thinking you can skip stages or fake maturity you haven't yet developed. The universe has a mysterious way of testing our readiness before entrusting us with greater responsibilities. Every difficult situation you face, every temptation you resist, every wise decision you make under pressure is silent preparation for what's to come. Think of a seed buried in the darkness of earth. It doesn't question why it must stay in darkness. It doesn't complain about the pressure of the soil. It doesn't despair because it can't see the light. It simply does the invisible work of growing, trusting that when it's ready, the surface will naturally open to receive it. Your journey toward true prosperity is exactly like that. It's not about forcing doors or skipping stages. It's about doing the necessary inner work until you naturally become someone for whom wealth is consequence, not objective. And while you do that work, while you develop each of these signs in silence, while you build the character that can sustain abundance without being corrupted by it, you must know you're not alone in this journey. Because your soul already knows the answer to the most important question. You're not here just to accumulate wealth. You're here to become someone worthy of receiving it, managing it, and multiplying it for the good of everyone around you. And when that happens, you'll understand that true wealth was always who you became in the process of conquering it. Let me ask you something that matters. Right now, in this moment, which of these 7 signs do you genuinely possess? Not the ones you wish you had, not the ones you're working toward, the ones you actually have, proven by your recent decisions. Sign 1. Can you sit in silence for 15 minutes without reaching for your phone, without needing validation, without panic rising in your chest? Sign 2. When you made your last financial decision, did you ask, how can I get rich from this? Or, how can I become more trustworthy through this? Sign 3. Are you seeking money to fill an emotional void? Or have you already done the internal work to be whole without it? Sign 4. Can you look at an opportunity for quick money and walk away because you're building something that will matter in 5 years? Sign 5. When was the last time you saw value in something everyone else dismissed? When did you last listen to someone no one else respected? Sign 6. Do you grip your possessions with white knuckles? Or do you hold them loosely, knowing you're just a temporary steward? Sign 7. Have you prayed for discernment recently? And more importantly, when it showed you something uncomfortable, did you act on it? Here's what I learned. after possessing more wealth than any human who ever lived. The money wasn't the point. It never was. The gold, the palaces, the power, they were all just mirrors reflecting back who I was becoming. And for too long, I didn't like what I saw. I saw a man who'd confused accumulation with accomplishment, who'd mistaken possessions for purpose, who'd built golden cages and called them kingdoms. It took me decades to understand what I'm telling you right now. Wealth is the universe's way of testing whether you've learned to value what matters. If you haven't learned to love silence more than approval, you'll use wealth to buy voices that tell you what you want to hear, and those voices will lead you to destruction. If you haven't learned to desire wisdom more than gain, you'll make one brilliant business deal that ruins everything else that matters. If you haven't stopped idolizing comfort, you'll use money as anesthesia until the pain you're running from consumes you completely. If you can't say no to what you want now, you'll grab at every shiny opportunity until your hands are full of fool's gold. If you can't see value where others see contempt, you'll miss the messenger pigeons while you're waiting for golden chariots. If you don't understand everything is a loan, you'll live in constant fear of losing what was never yours to keep. And if you won't pray for discernment and act with courage, you'll know exactly what you should do and do the opposite anyway. Here's the truth that changes everything. You don't need to have all 7 signs perfected right now. You just need to be honest about where you are and committed to growing into who you need to become. Because the universe doesn't demand perfection. It demands direction. It doesn't require you to be fully ready today. It requires you to be more ready tomorrow than you are today. Every time you choose silence over noise, you're building readiness. Every time you choose wisdom over quick gain, you're proving trustworthiness. Every time you do internal work instead of seeking external validation, you're becoming whole. Every time you wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing the immediate one, you're demonstrating patience. Every time you see value others miss, you're training your eyes for the next treasure. Every time you hold your possessions loosely, you're showing you can be trusted with more. Every time you act on uncomfortable truth, you're proving you have the courage for greater responsibility. And slowly, quietly, invisibly, you're becoming someone the universe can trust with abundance. Not because you chased it, but because you became worthy of it. So here's what I want you to do. Don't close this video and immediately start chasing the next opportunity. Don't rush out trying to apply these signs like they're techniques or tactics. Instead, sit in silence. Yes, that uncomfortable silence we talked about, and ask yourself one honest question. Who am I becoming? Not who you want to become. Not who you're pretending to be. Who you're actually becoming, based on the choices you've been making. Because wealth doesn't come to those who want it most. It comes to those who become ready for it. And readiness isn't something you achieve once and possess forever. It's something you cultivate daily through small choices that no one sees. The choice to sit in silence when you're anxious. The choice to ask for wisdom when you want shortcuts. The choice to do internal work when external pleasures are calling. The choice to wait when everyone else is rushing. The choice to look deeper when everyone else glances past. The choice to hold loosely when your instinct is to grip tight. The choice to act on truth when it costs you something valuable. These aren't dramatic moments. They're quiet ones. They happen in the spaces between what you want and what you do, between who you've been and who you're becoming. And if you make these choices consistently, something remarkable happens. One day you'll wake up and realize you're not the same person who started this journey. You'll notice that opportunities appearing in your life require exactly the qualities you've been developing. You'll find that people trust you with things they'd never trust the old version of you with. You'll discover that wealth isn't something you're chasing anymore, it's something that's found you. Not because you got lucky, not because you found some secret, but because you became someone worthy of receiving what the universe had been holding back until you were ready. And when that day comes, you'll understand what I learned too late. The greatest treasure isn't what you accumulate, it's who you become in the process. The real wealth isn't in your bank account, it's in your character. The true prosperity isn't measured by what you own, it's measured by what you've become trustworthy to steward. So begin today, not with chasing money, but with building character, not with forcing doors, but with doing the internal work that makes you ready when doors open. Because the wealth you're meant to have is already waiting for you. It's just waiting for you to become someone who can carry it without being destroyed by it. Someone who can manage it without being consumed by it. Someone who can multiply it without being corrupted by it. And the only way to become that person is through the quiet, daily practice of these 7 signs. Start with silence. Seek wisdom. Do the internal work. Practice patience. Train your eyes. Hold loosely. Act courageously. Do this not because you want to get rich. Do this because you want to become someone worthy of true prosperity. And when you do, you'll find that wealth was never the destination. It was just the natural consequence of becoming who you were always meant to be. Now, the choice is yours. You can close this video and go back to chasing money the way you always have. Or you can start the real work, the inner transformation that makes outer abundance inevitable. I've given you the map, the 7 signs, the secret code that took me decades of mistakes, losses, and painful lessons to discover. What you do with it determines whether you'll spend your life running after wealth that keeps slipping through your fingers or becoming someone wealth naturally flows toward. Choose wisely, because your future prosperity isn't being determined by the economy, or your opportunities, or your circumstances. It's being determined right now, in this moment, by the choice you make next. The choice between comfort and growth, between immediate and lasting, between wanting and becoming. Make it count. Your future self, the one living in the abundance you're meant for, is waiting to see if you'll do what it takes to meet them. Don't make them wait too long.